This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Sarah Lancaster, K-State weed specialist, starts today's show as she discusses key things that are happening with weeds this time of year. She mentions Palmer amaranth, weeds in soybeans, and cleaning up fields of wheat stubble. K-State's Sandy Johnson and Emma Briggs continue the show as they preview their upcoming cow camp and what they are providing to women in the cattle industry. Ending the show is Johnson County Extension Master Gardener Coordinator Mary Matthew and Sedgwick County Extension Horticulture Agent Matthew McKernan as they talk about demonstration gardens. That and more is coming up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Thursday show talking with K-State weed specialist Sarah Lancaster. Sarah, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Shelby.
Sarah, today wanting to just talk about a few different things that are happening in weed science, and starting off with post-emergence options for Palmer amaranth and grain sorghum.
Yeah, Shelby, it's that time of year where Palmer amaranth are growing rapidly, and we had a lot of late planted grain sorghum in parts of the state this year. So, if anything kind of went poorly with those pre-emergence applications to that grain sorghum, we could be starting to see some Palmer amaranth come through. And as most of our farmers who produce grain sorghum know, Shelby, there's not a lot of good options for post-emergence weed management in grain sorghum of anything, but especially not for Palmer amaranth. So, some of the options that folks can look at, and again, none of these are going to be silver bullets. We've got products like atrazine, right? Folks need to be aware of their total rate usage for atrazine-containing products. And also remember that atrazine can just be a good synergist for some of our other products as well, or a good addition to some of the other products. AIM is labeled for post-emergence application to grain sorghum. However, it's going to require really excellent coverage, and it's going to be better for pigweeds that are pretty small. 2,4-D and dicamba are probably the products that have the most activity on Palmer amaranth, but they also can cause some grain sorghum injury. In terms of lodging, brittle stems, things of that nature. So bromoxynil is an option. Again, it's going to be better suited for smaller Palmer amaranth, but bromoxynil is also a component of Husky. Husky can provide good control if pigweeds are small. You get adequate coverage. You're sure to use both a methylated seed oil and AMS in that tank mix. You can also apply Husky in combination with things like atrazine, things like low rates of 2,4-D and dicamba. So that's one to consider. And then another herbicide that theoretically has activity on pigweeds is Imiflex. It's the same active ingredient that we have in Beyond. ALS sensitive pigweeds would be controlled by this, but ALS resistance to varying levels is present throughout a lot of our pigweed populations in the state. So that's not necessarily one that we can count on there. That's really the options for pigweed control in grain sorghum right now, Shelby.
When you were discussing Husky, you mentioned it can be more effective when the pigweeds are small. What's your definition of small?
Yeah, so most of our herbicide labels are going to kind of cut off application rates at 4-inch pigweeds. And for a frame of reference for our listeners, 4 inches is roughly the size of a can of Diet Coke. So that can give you a frame of reference. But really, for things like AIM in particular, like probably less than 4 inches is better. Husky, specifically says 4 inches on the label, but once again, probably smaller is better. And coverage, again, is going to be really important for that product for those applications.
So hoping for those herbicides to be the most effective, is there some temperature or weather things that growers should consider?
Yeah, so we are getting into, really into summer here, right? I think that there's some pretty high temperatures in the forecast, and we've had some high temperatures recently. Weather is always an issue with herbicide applications this time of year. Kind of some rules of thumb. If the plants are not growing well, the herbicides are not going to work as well. You can talk about cutoffs kind of in the upper 80s is when you start to see reductions in control. As far as, how does the temperature affect? Lately we've had really high humidity along with our heat. And so that can maybe kind of dampen some of the negative effects of the heat. I'll also say some questions that we've had and conversations that we've had related to heat and humidity is that we had kind of to me, it seemed like a late, long spring this year. We got these really high temperatures later than normal this year. And so what we had plants that were maybe water stressed from too much water, hadn't been exposed to super high heat. We're thinking we're potentially seeing more drift issues because of these relatively sensitive plants being in these high humidity environments and just kind of setting us up for seeing more drift symptomology from contact herbicides.
What weed science things are happening with soybeans right now?
So as I drive around the state, I am seeing more soybean fields than I would like that have not had post-emergence herbicide applications. One of the things that I'm noticing in my research plots is that my kind of late group 3, early group 4 soybeans are starting to flower, which means we're approaching application cutoff times for, especially in particular, glufosinate-based herbicides like Liberty and Liberty Ultra. So we're kind of at crunch time here for a lot of our products. So that's something to think about, is that we're about to run out of time to make those applications on label for our soybean products. Most of our soybeans this year are going to rely on Liberty types of products to some extent. Folks in the Extend Flex systems don't have access to dicamba. So here in the eastern part of the state, a good kind of substitute as far as having a second active ingredient is products that contain the active ingredient pomeciphen, and things like Flexstar, Reflex could go into those mixes to give a second effective mode of action there. But just be aware of your geography and carryover restrictions for corn if you choose to go that route.
Is there a specific weed you've been seeing in the soybeans?
It's public enemy number one, Palmer amaranth. I've had some folks suggest that maybe we're seeing more horseweed or mare's tail than normal in some of our soybeans this year. I don't know if I have seen that widespread, at least here in the eastern part of the state, but that is around still as well because we didn't do a good job with our fall applications last year because it was so dry and nothing was up. So we're kind of paying for that in some situations now.
As you've been driving through the state, what else have you been seeing that is raising some concerns for you?
Yeah, the one that kind of gives me the most heartburn, Shelby, is probably wheat stubble. Right now, I've seen some fields that have been sprayed and are looking clean and in good shape. You can tell that they had good weed control in their weeds, and then they've gotten on those fields in a timely manner. I've seen other fields that are just green with Palmer amaranth, kochia, field bindweed, some grasses, including volunteer wheat, which we talked about not too long ago. So just keeping in mind timely applications for those wheat fields to keep those weeds from going to seed. Most of our applications in those systems or situations are going to include things like glyphosate, 2,4-D, dicamba. Just had a conversation actually with a retailer from Southeast Kansas talking about they're having problems with weed management in wheat stubble because it's too wet and they've just had a lot of challenges that mean they're probably not going to plant double crop soybeans. And so, we were talking about those 3 products, things like sulfentrazone in the mix if it works for crop rotations, or, things that are based around kind of a paraquat application that maybe includes atrazine or metribuzin as well.
Are you seeing any concerns for people who have double cropped behind wheat?
I have not seen any double crop beans that look too bad. Most of the fields that I've seen going into double crop, folks did a good job of cleaning up after the wheat stubble and then going in with their soybeans. Because, they're going to give us some canopy. They're going to help keep those weeds down and kind of give us some return on that investment of weed control in that wheat stubble. So, but we talked double crop systems with Tina and Logan here not too long ago as well.
Sarah, as you look forward into the summer then, any concerns you want growers to keep in mind as weeds continue to always be a problem?
We're kind of entering the slow season for summer crops in terms of weed management. Most of our crops have gotten really too tall to be on label for application. That brings up another question that I got 2 or 3 weeks ago. And that would be drone applications to corn that's like BT or tasseling. Long story short, not a lot of products labeled for that application. And that's probably not the best fit for drone applications in terms of trying to control weeds in really tall corn. So just something to keep in mind as folks are kicking around ideas for how to manage weeds in this unique summer that we're having.
If you want to find out more information about any of these topics, what's your recommendation?
So we've talked about most of these things in the K-State Agronomy eUpdate. So if folks are not signed up for that, your listeners probably mostly are because we talk about it pretty regularly, but that's a great resource. And then always good to remind folks of the chemical weed control guide that will have specific rates and summaries of adjuvant requirements and things of that nature in the Chem Weed Guide. So they can pick up a hard copy at their county office, county extension office, or can get a digital copy online.
Sarah, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having me, Shelby.
That was K-State Weed Specialist Sarah Lancaster. You can find those agronomy e-updates at eUpdate.agronomy.ksu.edu, or I will also link it in today's show notes on agtoday.net. Also in the show notes will be a link to the Chemical Weed Control Guide, which you can also find at bookstore.ksre.ksu.edu. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but stick around because we have more for you up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show discussing cow camp with K-State Beef Reproduction Specialist Sandy Johnson and K-State Beef Production Specialist Emma Briggs. Sandy, Emma, thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
Sandy, what is cow camp?
Well, cow camp is something, I guess we adapted from what we've seen in some other states, but the goal is to try to provide some hands-on experience exclusively for women, to provide an environment where nobody feels intimidated about, oh, they expect me to know that or not. And hopefully this is that type of environment where we can figure out what we do and don't know and grow basic skills in an environment that's conducive to building those relationships and learning.
And why is this something that you guys have wanted to take on and put on for women in the industry?
I think that this was an opportunity to provide an environment where we could teach some of these groundbreaking skills that are important in the beef industry, and also provide additional knowledge so people who maybe want to get a little bit more involved with maybe an operation, maybe an already family operation, or if they are just starting their own herd, but maybe needed not only maybe some skills and some education on the matter, but also to try to develop a cohort of women through this program where they could meet people who are experiencing, similar situations and try to build that network for them.
You both have mentioned creating an environment to hopefully spur on learning and the willingness to ask questions. And what do you think are some important things to having that environment created?
I think part of it is, depending on who you know in the industry, sometimes you know people that are struggling with same things you are, and sometimes you don't. And so part of our goal is to, I know everybody will come at a different place in their experiences, but yet maybe they find somebody with a little more experience that can be their go-to for, I think this is a dumb question, but I can ask Emma about it because she won't laugh at me for asking it, or, whatever level. And after our actual meeting portion is open, I guess we hope to keep this group communicating in some fashion, depending on what their desires are to, keep that conversation going past this meeting date.
For the cow camp, then, is it really for women who have maybe are just starting in the cattle industry to people who have maybe been in it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
I would say that the people who are, probably going to gain the best experience, not to say that we would, close our doors to anybody, but, really looking at the new people who are new to the cattle business or really want to help build some of the foundational skills that really takes to run an effective operation. People who may also want to be a little bit more involved and understand different management decisions, and also people who are just maybe willing to or just need a little bit more confidence for a few aspects. Maybe they just aren't super comfortable pulling blood yet, but this is a great opportunity where you can get a little bit more experience other than just having to train yourself.
And beyond pulling blood, what are some other skills you're hoping to help teach?
Yeah, well, as Emma was talking there, the things that we're going to talk about are things that are going to be important to any operation. And, very foundational to a beef operation is monitoring body condition. And so that will be one of the sessions that we'll talk about. We'll also look at making sure we can understand EPDs, and we won't get in great depth with the time we have allotted to it, but hopefully we will be able to make sure they understand the basics of EPDs and not to get overwhelmed with all the things that the choices are there. We'll have a little bit on calving and calving assistance. Another portion will be risk management, looking at some of our risk management tools. We'll look at forage sampling, and we'll do a little bit with pasture. So monitoring pastures, identifying different grasses, making sure we understand some of the fundamental portions to stock our pastures and manage those. So those are the kind of the big things. We'll also be doing what we hope are kind of some fun things as well. I think they're all fun, but that say my mother might classify as fun is we have our meat scientist, Erin Byers, looking at, she's got it titled Beyond the Brisket, and talk about cooking other type of roasts that, when you have a beef processed, you may have more things than you're used to cooking. And so she's going to spend a little time on that. And then Kelsey Stramel is going to do a little session on photography, can tie into family or as well as the operation. So anyway, that's kind of the overview of what we'll cover.
Obviously, some very important topics to understanding a cattle herd, but which one are you most excited to teach other women about?
I'm really excited to talk about EPDs and also forage analysis. I feel like those are the two things that I could, with an open slate, talk about for hours and hours on end. It's both two different things that I'm very passionate about, mostly because I really enjoy the genetic bioenvironment interactions and kind of how they play out. So those are probably the two I'm most excited for.
I'm always happy to talk about body condition, and it's just so fundamental to our whole management. And, whether or not Emma's got the right genetics and the right feed in front of them, what we measure that outcome is looking at that body condition. And so we're fortunate we'll be able to look at some animals. It's we all think we know, but some people have a better eye than others, and we want to try and refine those so that when we talk about achieving certain goals, that we're on the same page and not 200 pounds off.
Beyond the livestock and cattle knowledge you hope for people to gain, what else are you really hoping they walk away from cow camp with?
Well, hopefully just a good experience, getting to know. We have a number of our county and district personnel that will be helping with the event. So getting to know more resources within our K-State Extension system, recognizing that our job is to help producers, and we want to do that.
Just echo what Sandy said, and if anything, you be able to find other women in the cattle industry that are going through everything that you're going, whether it's drought or maybe in weed problems. There's someone else that you can reach out to that is gonna provide welcomed answers and not just a slew of random responses on the internet that may or may not be beneficial.
Emma, Sandy, as you are both females in agriculture and the cattle industry, what makes you really excited about this?
Well, I guess I want to make sure that women in the industry understand that there's nothing that they can't do. And if they haven't seen good examples of that, we want to help them develop that confidence. And, for things that you may feel like you're physically limited on, let's figure out how we're going to get it done anyway. And usually there's a way. So
I feel like growing up, I wanted to learn a lot more skills that maybe my parents didn't have. And so then I had to start trying to go to dairies and things to learn how to get some of the skills that I wanted. But this provides a good opportunity. And I feel like as Extension, we're educators, and this is something we're really excited about.
When is Cow Camp taking place?
Yeah, Cow Camp is September 10th and 11th, so kind of a noon to noon event. And we'll be at the Agriculture Research Center at Hayes, where Emma is located. And so we're really glad, Emma's been on board here for a year or so, but I'm glad to have her there to help with all the animal logistics that it really takes to make this happen. The ability to have that facility and use these animals is key to this event.
What is the cost of registration?
Registration is $75. That includes all the materials for the workshops as well as all of the meals from that noon to noon time frame.
Is there also a deadline to register, but also a cap on the amount of participants that Cow Camp can have?
We have limited the registration to 40 people because, in order to really provide the hands-on nature that we want, it's got to be a smaller group. And so there is a limited registration. It's been open about a week or so, and we have several that have registered so far. So there's certainly still time to register, and we're happy to put people on a waiting list as we see what happens.
Where can people go to get registered or find more information?
You want to go to ksubeef.org. It's also outlined in our Beef Tips newsletter, which you can access from ksubeef.org as well. There's a link to our Western Kansas sites, but it's a little harder to tell you that. So ksubeef.org would enable you to contact both Emma and myself, as well as find Cow Camp. So,
Sandy, Emma, I appreciate you both taking the time to join us today.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for having us.
That was K-State Beef Reproduction Specialist Sandy Johnson and K-State Beef Production Specialist Emma Briggs discussing Cow Camp, which is happening September 10th and 11th. I will link the resources that Sandy mentioned in today's show notes on agtoday.net. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be right back.
This is Agriculture Today. Along with Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. For the July K-State Garden Hour, Extension horticulture agents Matthew McKernan, Marcus Hill, Jason Graves, and Jay Harris, along with Johnson County Master Gardener Coordinator Mary Matthew, took participants on a journey of demonstration gardens, from Hayes to Central Kansas to Johnson County to Sedgwick County. Matthew says that these gardens help promote education, sustainability, and community engagement.
Demonstration gardens really are that opportunity to showcase different gardening techniques, different plant types, or even different design concepts. And as I like to think about our demonstration gardens, they really are that place for our home gardeners to go to be able to see examples of how to garden effectively, sustainability, and aesthetically. Our demonstration gardens are funded entirely by community donations and Master Gardener fundraising efforts. Our demonstration gardens are run by our Master Gardeners in each of our programs, along with our K-State Extension agents. And those two in partnerships work to plan, design, plant, maintain, and showcase the gardens. They are hands-on learning. It's nice to be able to walk out into one of our demonstration gardens and see what a certain plant looks like and be able to talk with different gardeners about their care and their maintenance. They're also available for tours in different areas. We also like to showcase solutions to common gardening problems. I think many of us right now are dealing with Japanese beetles, and so sometimes in our gardens we can showcase how to take care of those. They also showcase diverse plants and crops that are grown utilizing research-based techniques. Some gardens are just in the terms of themes, maybe showing native plants, vegetable gardens. Probably the most important thing for me sometimes, it gives me inspiration. I look out in my backyard and I look at that flower bed and I think I'm tired of it. I want something new. I want to plant something different. Or in my garden, I want to try a different vegetable to grow this year. To me, that's what the demonstration garden can do. I can go out, I can take a walk through some of our gardens and see, oh gosh, maybe I should try that. So if you've asked yourself any of those questions, it sounds to me like you're looking for inspiration from a demonstration garden as well.
As part of his presentation, Sedgwick County Extension horticulture agent Matthew McKernan provided an overview of the Sedgwick County Extension Arboretum in northwest Wichita.
On our property here, we have about 24 acres of ground that's part of our Sedgwick County Extension office. And across those grounds, we really have an opportunity to have really unique and specialized display gardens. We have 12 unique display gardens and an arboretum of over 325 different trees to really showcase to the community and to the state of Kansas what good plant selections can look like for South Central Kansas. Our mission is to really make sure that our grounds serve as an open classroom and a public learning environment for everybody in the community to come and visit from. And then across the backside of our property, we have a riparian nature trail. Riparian meaning water's edge, and this area focuses native and invasive plants that naturally grow in our Kansas ecosystem in South Central Kansas. Our Extension Arboretum was founded in 1994 when the building was first established, and over that time we've planted over 325 trees. Of those trees, we have 62 different genus of trees and over 275 unique varieties and cultivars planted across our grounds. Really all the way around between the building and the street, you'll be able to find our collection of trees that make up our Extension Arboretum. All of the plants and all of the trees that we grow on our grounds, we grow with minimal water and minimal care. And our rationale for that is that if these plants can grow successfully with minimal water and minimal maintenance, if you take them home, plant them in your own landscape, and give them additional water and additional care, hopefully you'll have even greater success than we do. If you visit our website, Sedgwick.ksu.edu/arboretum, there's going to be all 325 trees listed there, and there's a lot of great features that you can find as a useful tool to navigate our arboretum and better understand the trees that are growing there. You'll also be able to search our arboretum and be able to hopefully use our arboretum as a tool to pick the right tree for your future landscape or home. So it's a great way to visit our extension office if you don't have the ability to get in your car and drive today.
That's Sedgwick County Extension horticulture agent Matthew McKernan. To view the entire webinar, do an online search for K-State Garden Hour. To learn more about demonstration gardens in your area, contact the local extension office. And that'll do it for this edition of Agriculture Today. For Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. This is the K-State Radio Network.